Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Howell Township Mayor and Council's public participation meeting. It is April 11th, 2006. Mr. Pody, would you please actually read the opening statement and call the roll?
Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this public participation meeting of the Howell Township Council was provided for in the following manner. By the posting of a copy of said notice upon bulletin board in the Township Municipal Building on March 22, 2006, by the faxing of a copy of said notice in the Asbury Park Press, Tri-Town News, and Star Ledger for publication on March 22nd, by the filing of a copy of said form of notice to the Township Clerk's office on March 22, 2006. The public will be allowed to attend and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. The public is reminded that civility and decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of Public Law 1975, Chapter 127, NJAC 1727. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code, be advised that this facility is designed with 3 emergency exits for your safety. The locations are as follows. Upon exiting the meeting room, to the rear they are to your immediate left and immediate right, and at the front of the meeting room at the left of the dais. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Okay, would you also please call the roll?
Mr. Mullave?
Here.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Present.
Mr. Tabasco?
Mr. Tabasco is out of town on business this evening.
Mr. Walsh?
Present.
Mayor DeBella?
Here. Would everyone please rise for a pledge of allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd ask that everyone please remain standing for a moment of silent thought and observation as we think of those troops that are defending this country all over the globe. In particular, was a volunteer firefighter, not from our community, but from another community in New Jersey, who was killed today trying to save the life of a New Jersey resident in Franklin Township, and in an act of self-sacrifice gave up his own life. And I'd ask that we keep that gentleman and his family in our prayers tonight. Thank you. Okay, tonight is our public participation meeting. We do have, which is atypical for these meetings, some very brief business that we do need to take. I'm going to ask the member of the council, please make a motion to go into regular session.
So moved, Mayor.
We have a motion, we need a second.
Second, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any remarks? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Mullave?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. I'd ask that a member of the council please read the appropriate introductory commentary with respect to the bond ordinance for the Pinnacle property 00621. Tonight is the introduction. We have a public hearing and a tentative adoption on April 25. The member of the council like to...
Motion to introduce ordinance number 0-06-21 on first reading by title, and to order the same to be published in full in the 4/14/06. Issued the Asbury Park Press together with notice of its introduction. It passes on first reading by title and will be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on 4/25/06 at 8 p.m. prevailing time municipal building.
We have a motion. We need a second.
Second, Mayor.
We do have a motion and a second. Are there any remarks? Okay, no remarks. Roll call, please. I'm sorry, Mr. Tripodi, would you please read the title?
Bond ordinance amending in part bond ordinance number 04-32 adopted on July 20, 2004, as amended by bond ordinance number 05-9 adopted on March 15, 2005 for the acquisition of land for public use in order to increase the appropriation therefore by $3.8 million for a total appropriation of $22 million to increase the authorized bond and notes to be issued to finance a portion of the cost thereof by $3,610,000 for a total debt authorization of $20 million, and to decrease the allocation of the appropriation to cost permitted under NJSA 40A2-20, authorized in and by the Township of Howell in the County of Monmouth, New Jersey.
Okay, I'll revisit it again. Are there any remarks?
Well, I'd like to ask a question.
Go right ahead, sir.
Have we searched other means of funding this from the county, from the state, anything like that, instead of putting all the burden on the taxpayers?
Well, a couple thoughts. All the burden is always on the backs of the taxpayers because if the state or other agencies provide the funding, it's still paid for by the taxpayers. So we did actually explore that. We looked at Green Acres funding. We're still hopeful that we may receive some assistance from the County of Monmouth. The problem with the Green Acres funding is that there are extraordinary limits with respect to what we may ultimately be able to do with the property. And at the time we looked into the Green Acres monies, we did not want to, in essence, give up the future rights and flexibility of that property and potentially limit what this municipality may do now or in 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50 years because of the restrictions that Green Acres would put along with that. Now, Mr. Malave and Mrs. Showmaker were also here at the time, and they may have additional recollections in addition to mine, but we did explore many other alternatives with respect to funding, and again, we are hopeful that we may be able to continue to try and encourage the county to assist us in preserving this most valuable piece of property. Mrs. Showmaker or Mr. Malave, do you have anything else to add?
Basically, you're right on, Mr. Mayor. That's the way I remember it.
Likewise. With Green Acres funding, there are a lot of attachments.
Would you help me? What kind of attachments are there that?
It restricts you on what you can and cannot do with the property.
Mrs. Zernecki, can you perhaps elaborate a little bit further with respect to what the Green Acres limitations may or may not be?
Sure. In general, whenever you accept Green Acres funds, first of all, you have to understand that you encumber all the parkland you have. The restrictions that would apply on the land you're purchasing with Green Acres money applies to all the parkland you have in the municipality. When it comes to defining active recreation, there tends to be a disagreement that always has to be worked out at the state level between what a town considers active and what the state permits. So you always get into issues of if you need a roadway into a parking lot, and if you have a building, let's say, depending on what kind of uses you have in it, the state might not allow that on that land for if it's encumbered to Green Acres. So that's a kind of general overview of the encumbrances that they place on a property.
Could you help me with some of the positives?
Well, it used to be, when the program first started, that the state would indicated that if you had an open space plan and you had a municipal open space tax, they would fund about 50% of the purchase price under what's called a planning incentive grant. What happened as a result of that is just about, I don't want to say every municipality, but many municipalities ran to have that in place. And so the state's actually not supplying that 50% at closing. It's really providing it in small increments to the point where many governing bodies are making a policy that are considering these policies that, you know, given the trickle of money that's now available at Green Acres because of the competition for it, it may or may not be worth the encumbrance. So the positive is that you actually get money, but not at the level that was anticipated when they launched the program.
So we would get money from the state and help it to purchase the land, which would preserve it.
If well, you can look if the money comes in, and typically what and I understand there's an application in. What you would do is not talking about this land specifically, but any land. What towns are doing is whatever money comes in, they then subdivide a portion of that land that they feel they'll never put a parking lot on, they'll never put, you know, a driveway in or whatever, and then they'll encumber that small portion. So that is how a lot of towns are starting to manage these small grants that come in.
You said there's an application in?
I believe I heard the mayor say that we had a Green Acres application in for this property.
No, we had considered.
Oh, okay.
We had considered Green Acres funding, but at the time it was really presented to us, and we validated and revalidated that if we used Green Acres money for any portion of the property, that portion would in fact be deemed ineligible for active recreational use. And so as a result of that, with so much of this area being so close to the reservoir, there were limited portions of the property that could legitimately be used for active purposes anyway. And knowing that this is a municipality that is growing and is in need on a long-term basis of perhaps some sort of additional recreational amenities that our successors down the road may need a large parcel of property to use, in the event we were to use Green Acres funding, if it amounted to any substance whatsoever, it would in fact encompass all of the areas within this property that could be used, in fact, to do something active recreationally. And so rather than hinder our capability to use the land for anything than other being a big open field, we did not want to handcuff the municipality on a long-term basis. And so, in fact, we've had several conversations, and their particular name escapes me, one of the New Jersey Water Establishment Preservation Funds, Mr. Davis would have it, contacted us, and he had been in constant dialogue with them because of the proximity to the Manasquan water supply. And in addition, we have had constant dialogue with the Monmouth County Parks and Recreation Organization in an effort to see if the county would be willing to provide funding as well, so that perhaps on a joint basis we could go in with them. So those were the tactics that had been deployed. It was the collective judgment that to pursue Green Acres funding would place too much of a prohibition on what this municipality could ever do with such a large piece of land other than cut the grass. And we did not want to expend what would still have to be fairly significant taxpayer funds just to have a large open field that our successors would never be able to use.
I would just add, I know that the municipality does have a number of Green Acres grant applications in the works at the state, and I will provide you with a list of what properties those are for. It may not be this property, though, as the mayor said.
Yeah, it's not.
Is there any other kind of financing we can get from the county or the state that would help us in the purchase of this land?
There's the
Yes.
county open space program.
Yeah, the answer is yes, and we have been in contact with the director of the county parks program. We've been in contact with their open space preservation fund, and quite frankly, the county indicated last year that they were not in a position to allocate any additional monies at that particular point in time, but that they would be interested in revisiting it with us at the appropriate time.
I'm not aware of any other typical programs out there. Every now and then, a nonprofit organization like the Sierra Club or the or others like that might take an interest in a piece of property and become a partner with the municipality in it. But and actually, under Green Acres, nonprofits are able to apply for grants. Some portion of that is set aside, and my understanding is that that's not as competitive as the municipal grants. So sometimes towns partner with these organizations.
I would think we would want to explore some of these avenues, especially at this time when people are having a hard time paying their taxes, and it seems to be the number one issue, is people not being able to afford their taxes. And for us not to be exploring these avenues, I feel is doing a disservice.
Well, hold on a minute, because we have explored these areas, so you need to correct your statements. We have explored those options.
Yes.
We have a clear record of having explored those options. We will continue to explore those options. In fact, we have voted on many opportunities to save monies. None the least was the $360,000 in the health benefits. That was near unanimous. So I think we're absolutely committed to finding ways to cut spending and save taxpayer monies, and I would hope that as we go through this negotiating process, because as we all recall, the reason that we're doing this evening is to better our position as it relates to the eminent domain process or the foreclosure process. So this is not a guaranteed expenditure of these funds, but as we all recall,
That's right.
this was a tactical maneuver on our part to ensure that we would have time, once the ordinance was passed, we would have time to, in fact, continue to have council maneuver in a way that would work favorably to the municipality. So to the contrary, we have, and we will continue to explore any venues that can help us find funding for this particular project, be it county money, be it state money, whatever it may be, so long as it doesn't tie our hands with respect to being able to use the property for the full benefit of all the people of the community.
Now and long-term.
On a short and long-term basis.
Yeah, on a short and long-term basis. That's very important.
I would hope we would keep on going after those other avenues of money to see if we can get some help.
We darn well better be, and it's my impression that we are, and we will continue to. Okay, are there any additional comments?
No, Mayor.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Malave?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Okay, we have hearings of citizens, and then we're, I'm sorry?
You have a resolution.
And we
Yeah,
have,
we have a
oh, it's on the add-on, I'm sorry. We do have a resolution, this is an add-on to the agenda for the benefit of the public. We have a preliminary sewer approval for Mark Properties, Block 73, Lot 21, 5396, 5398 on Route 9 South.
700 feet south of Lanes Mill.
This is a resolution of the Township Council, the Township of Howell, authorizing preliminary sewer approval for Mark Properties, approximately 700 linear feet south of Lanes Mill Road.
I'd just like to make note for the record, Mayor, that this site is within an area of proposed sanitary service.
Okay?
It is in our wastewater management
Why
plan.
don't we have someone just
If I
open
may
this up in a
comment,
motion?
this
Before we
is
do
our-
that, why don't we just make a quick motion to open this up? Motion to approve.
So moved, Mayor.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Second, Mayor.
Okay, under remarks, Mr. Filiatro?
This is our first connection under the Route 9 sewer. Route 9 South sewer.
Terrific. Okay, good. Are there any other comments? Okay, no other comments. Roll call, please.
Mr. Malave?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Okay. Before we go into the hearing of citizens, Councilman Malave has asked to be recognized for a few moments, so I'd ask that we give him our attention, please. Mr. Malave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make it short and sweet. I promise. Mr. Mayor and Howard Township residents, it is with a heavy heart, after several weeks of thought and consideration, I have come to the conclusion that my candidacy for council is not in the best interest of Howard Township. Although had I decided to run for office again, I would have full support of my family, and they're demonstrating so by being here present tonight. It is because of them that I have decided not to seek re-election. There are some health issues that I must address in the upcoming months that, in conjunction with my taking on additional responsibilities on my regular job, will prevent me from fully and effectively represent all the citizens of this township. This council position requires full commitment and dedication, and the Howard Township residents deserve nothing less. It's been an honor and privilege to having had the opportunity to serve and represent all 52,000 Howard Township residents. I will continue to do so with pride, with integrity, with passion, through the conclusion of my term, which ends December 31st, 2006. I have demonstrated throughout my council years that I'm a person of honor, and I give respect to earn it. And the citizens of Howard Township have been wonderful to me, and for that I thank you. Public servant is something that's very dear to me, and I hope to someday have the opportunity again to serve this community in some capacity. I wish all the candidates the best of luck. I call upon them And I see two here tonight, at least two that I recognize in the audience tonight, possibly three. I wish all the candidates the best of luck, and I call upon them to run a clean, dignified, issue-oriented campaign, to refrain from personal attacks on each other, and more importantly, to exclude mentioning of one's families at all times. It's very important that this community come together and stop the negative campaigning that has been going on throughout the years. I want to thank my colleagues up here, Councilman Walsh, Councilwoman Showmaker, Deputy Mayor Tabasco, who's out tonight, my friend, dear friend of mine, Mayor DeBella. I want to thank you all for your support. I want to thank you all for all you do for this community. I want to thank you for your sacrifices that you do make, as I know. I also want to thank the management team of Howell Township, Mr. C, Mr. Davis, who's not here tonight, and their staff, all of the township professionals, Mr. Gannon, who's been here since day one, all of the volunteer community members throughout the township. I thank them for all they do for this community as well. A warm and special thanks to all Howell Township residents who supported me and believed in me despite their political affiliation, because after all, that's what it's all about, not politics. It's about a sense of community. It's about people. As I still remember our campaign logo when I had the distinguished honor of running side by side with Mr. Mayor DeBella and Deputy Mayor Tabasco. We had a campaign slogan back then 4 years ago, and it's about people and not politics, and I still believe in that. And last but not least, to my family and friends, excuse me, my wife of 21 years, Delilah, 21 long years, but wonderful years. My two precious and beautiful girls, Daniela and Priscilla, thank you for your unconditional love and support. Thank you for allowing me to be silly at times. Thank you for allowing me to be just me. God bless Howell Township. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
No, that'll keep.
All right, well, now that we've only got a couple of more months, I say we work the hell out of them from now to the end of the year.
Bring it on. I'm ready, Mr. Mayor.
There's not much you can say after that kind of statement, and we'll have a long rest of the year. But one of the bright spots I've gotten out of the time that I've been an elected official is that Councilman Juan Malavi is perhaps one of my best friends on this face of this earth, and he is an honorable, absolutely dignified husband, father, and public servant, and this community will not be the same for not having you continue to serve. We all respect your very personal decision, and I'm excited that we've got the rest of the year because you're a good, decent, honorable man. Oh, okay. We're going to go to a hearing of the citizens. Who's got the list of, I'm
Mayor,
sorry, do we have something to do before that?
We do have an executive session.
Are we going to do that? We are doing it now. Is there, okay.
Three people here
We should just do the three people.
signed up. Maybe we can.
Yeah,
I would suggest perhaps we should.
why don't we do the public
Do the public
first, if you
first.
don't mind, Mr. Gannon, if you pass that on over, and then we'll get to that. And I also know we've got a couple of presentations. Rather than keep Girl Scouts of Monmouth County, and Miss Antonucci of the Head Start program. With the team that's for executive, you guys are okay? Waiting? Okay, good, terrific. Okay, Miss Marie Calderon, come on up, Miss Calderon, welcome. Good to see you. You know the routine, please, if you just, as always, give us your name and address for the record.
Marie Calderon, 45 Mariners Cove,
Is the microphone anywhere? Oh, terrific.
Freehold, New Jersey.
Thank you, Ms. Calderon.
Actually Howell, but I have Freehold address. Can I just say one thing to
Of
Mr.
course.
Millay? I have to tell you, I'm very sorry to hear that, because I find that I'm not coming to these meetings for a very long time. I do watch them, I do follow things in the paper, and I think on our end, for the citizens, you are one of the most respectful people up there. And I just talked with Abe, and we agree you are very respectful. And whether you agree with us or not, you always up there show respect. We watch these back on TV, and you, especially Ms. Shumerica too, Mr. Walsh, Mr. DeVille, but there's one person here that really laughs at people. You are very respectful, and I'm sorry to hear that you are leaving. I'm really sorry. Anyway, enough with that. But
Welcome, Ms. Calderon.
okay, I'm here about Moore's Landing. I know you know about Apostle Acres. Okay. I'm sorry that Mr. Annunziato's here. A lot of this pertains to him. I wouldn't have come if I didn't know.
It was, in fairness, he had an unexpected family emergency
Oh, no,
come
I
up.
understand that. I should
That's why
have
he's not
called
here.
first or tried to find out. Last Thursday, I went down to the Environmental Protection Agency on that property where they're planning to build a basin for Howell Township. And I spent the whole day down with the state. They were very helpful, very informative. They also gave me a letter. Now, I found out that day, and I went very unprepared to Howell Township. I had found out from Mr. Annunziato that there was a meeting going on at the township pertaining to approving these houses. Now, I did go there unprepared. Boy, I learned my lesson.
At which township?
Freehold.
In Freehold.
I did learn my lesson. I should have went with an attorney. I told my daughter, you know, I wish she lived closer, and with an engineer. Most of the time, I do go to Rutgers to show them certain things, and they inform me, and I go to the state, and, you know, the state was very helpful. They gave me a letter saying, addressed to Freehold, that absolutely nothing by their means is approved. So if that meeting, if they were going to prove that, contingent on all the other things being passed. But apparently, I didn't know how it works. They can approve the plans regardless of anything else being approved. I didn't know this. I since found out from an attorney that I talked to. We were treated, they gave the whole presentation on the homes and the trees and everything, and they addressed everybody around except Howell Township's property and what goes on for Howell Township, which, not that I expected them to address it, but they could have at least heard us out. Now, I found out that Mr. Annunziato that day, I tried to get information from you that day so that I can go down there, but I had no luck. I did go to your office. I talked to Myra that day. I think she talked to you.
Yeah.
And I think I was being misinformed on certain things. I went to the state just to find out how townships work, and because I got to tell you, I'm new at this. I don't know. But I did find out one thing, that somebody has to take accountability at the township for anything being built, whether it's a home, whether it's a basin, and I also found out at Freehold Township that somebody has to take accountability. In their minutes, it states that Howell Township has to take responsibility for that basin ultimately. What was also said was that there are dealings so far, or that you've been approached with certain maybe deals, well, yeah, deals is the right word, that's probably in the minutes, because they address, the township addressed the builder and said, have you met with Howell Township? And they said, yes, we have discussed certain things. This is, I'll get the minutes for you. This was, certain things were discussed, but nothing was in writing, or nothing was. Now, I found out from the state that we were told all along by Mr. Annunziato that he has the sole say-so as far as what goes on in the basin. Now, I found that out. That's not true. It has to either go before a council, before a planning board, and it does not. Now, he misinformed myself, Abe Majed, everybody else. Now, he has been the only one, I think, counteracting with Freehold Township. Now, you have to have a designated liaison, somebody who takes accountability from this township to the next township. I also found out that he said, really, he looked at the plans, they had to hire somebody or get somebody by the name of Ernie Peters to go out and look at the plans or whatever. They had and I guess Apostle Acres had to put down a $500 escrow because he wouldn't do it without being paid. I don't think that's sufficient enough to know with the problem this property has had, agreeable by the state. So what I'm here for tonight is, and I need to have it on record, because I'm not sure, all I know is that I keep going back and forth to the state and trying to find out, there are certain processes you have to go to. And I just need to know who has been dealing with Freehold Township and who is going to take accountability for what's going on, because there's a lot of other things in the minutes which I'm trying to get copies of so that I can show my daughter what's legally right. There was talking about giving some kind of property to Howell Township in a deal, giving some kind of open space. Now, this is on record. And I feel that I did come down this week, and I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name, Mr. Chernesky. You had referred, I asked to speak to you because I wanted to go there a little bit prepared. First of all, you had just said that Miss Amira had called you up, and you said ultimately Mr. Annunziato knows the whole process. Now, on the phone, talking to him, I confronted him with what information I was finding out from the state, and he backed down and said, well, no, I didn't say that. I don't have responsibility for anything the township. Now, you have to get this clear, because I also found out going to Monmouth County, to find out who owns certain properties and certain things, that I'm not the only property that the DEP has. They have tons of property here that people are getting letters that builders are looking to build on that are questionable areas. And some of them border other townships. So we need to have a clear, precise method in handling this. Now, you can't just turn a blind eye, because right now Burgerfield Road has a problem with flooding on the Howell Township side. You also have water problems that could cost us more money down the line to fix these problems, rather than not pay a few dollars for an engineer that's not paid by Apostle Acres to go out and look. Now, if I'm speaking out of turn or I don't know, I'm learning, and I don't know. But there's a lot of inconsistency here. So I will be sending you a letter. Maybe I can get most of Moore's Landing to sign. Like I said, I'm doing this. I work very hard. I'm trying to take days off, but I'm dealing right now with the state because they seem the most helpful.
What I think we can tell you, Ms. Calderon, is I'm not aware that the council's been involved in any of these discussions.
No.
Mr. Zanecki, can you comment on that?
Two things. Just as a practical matter, when I received your call, mind you, I'm not that familiar with this development, but I knew the engineering department might have more records, so I
understand.
I had made sure that Mr. Nunziato reached out to you immediately, because that meeting was going on that night, to give you whatever information he had.
Mr. Nunziato had called me that day, and he did call me on your behalf after saying that. But what Mr. Nunziato also did, which I find to be maybe unethical. Well, I wish he was here. I don't like speaking about somebody when I can't face them.
Why don't we then, if you have concerns about that, why don't you and I
what I did find
talk about that?
Let me just jump in here. This is a complicated process. Okay, you've said a few things that, in my opinion, knowing the person that you addressed it to, is not appropriate at this time. When you mentioned,
For who?
I think you said that what Mr. Nunziata did was unethical.
No, you didn't hear what I was going to say after that.
Well,
maybe it would make sense.
Refrain from that. But you also indicated that there was an engineer that was getting paid by Apostle Acres.
Not by Apostle Acres. He had told me on the phone that.
Well, let me explain what happened. The person you named is our planning board engineer.
Okay.
Okay. Now, there may be, and I'll consult with the planning board attorney, there may be need for them to come before our planning board if it's a structure. We'll have to look at it.
The state agreed with that.
But in any event, our engineering department, based on what you just said, is already looking at it. Okay? Now, they're paying an escrow.
Yes,
Okay?
I heard
And
that.
that's the normal procedure.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Every time someone goes before the planning board, they pay an escrow for the review engineers to look at it rather than give you the bill as a taxpayer.
Can I ask you another question?
You certainly can. I might not be able to give you an answer because
Okay.
this isn't really our jurisdiction, but we're going to try to give you as much
See, that's what I'm
information.
saying. I don't know. I'm
let-
just asking.
Sure. Let me just, in general, whenever a development application comes into a town, it goes either to a planning board or a zoning board. And if the development happens to straddle 2 towns or 3 towns, then typically the same board in that town would hear that part of the application as well. That's generally speaking. Now, I don't know if it gets into the details of a basin or not. We'd have to sit down and talk about that. But the governing body would not deal with that issue. It would be
But somebody other than the engineer would.
Well, it would be a planning board issue, and then that's why it makes sense that the planning board engineer has been involved. And typically, when developers come into a town, we have to review all their plans to make sure they're consistent with our standards. But so that the taxpayers don't pay for that review, they have to put up an escrow account, to pay for that professional who the township appoints to look out for those structures on the town's behalf, be it a road, a drainage basin, a sewer system, what have you.
So you're saying that Freehold Township approached the planning board, and we're talking about possible scenarios as far as what property they would give them for building the basin back there?
I'd have to see the details of that.
I can check on the minutes
yeah.
going back to see if they indeed did do that. Okay. And like I said, with Mr. Annunziato, if you need me to come back for the next meeting, I can address this to him directly. And if I'm speaking out of turn, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying my best.
Yeah, you're trying to gather information.
I'm trying my best,
Understood.
yes. Like, he had called me that day. I tried to get all this information after talking to you, and he said there's copies down at Barbara Capitan's office. I spent the whole day back and forth trying to get copies from her. She didn't have it, he didn't have it. I spent the whole day, wasting my day. But when he had called me at home, he had said to me that you had told him to call me
Yes.
addressing this, and he said he didn't know the exact who actually takes responsibility for it. And he also informed me that he had called Apostle Acres and their attorney, Peter Licata, to let them know that we would be coming down to the Freehold Township meeting.
Right.
And he also had faxed over that day a letter from Ernie Peters. I think that letter should have gone in way before that because it was done well before that. And I didn't understand the purpose of him contacting them. So it's just a lot of questions I have. And I see when I come down to the township, I'm trying to do this without coming here because I figure maybe I don't understand a lot. But can you just give me an answer as to who ultimately is going to take accountability? Because I need to get a letter out, and I just want to send it to the right person.
Here is, Ms. Calderon, here's my sense on this. I had reason to speak to Mayor Amiano, who was the mayor of Freehold Township, about this particular issue not that long ago because of the concerns that you and Mr. Maggott and others had raised, and he indicated it was going to be in front of their planning board, and he recognized that it appeared as if the less than desirable amenities would wind up being on the Howell Township side, and I expressed our concern and that we certainly wanted them to look at this from our view, which was that we get stuck with the detention basin, and it could have serious repercussions to the people that lived in the surrounding areas. And he understood that and said it was going to be a matter in front of their planning board, and I think since that time, they've had a planning board meeting.
It was very disrespectful. If you get the minutes, as a matter of fact, there was little comments here and there, whether they're on record or not, as to, well, Moore's Landing shouldn't be there. But we have been. We've been there for over 20-something years. It's still on our property. And there was other comments as that we're not here for Howell. So I just, I stood there for 1 second and I saw it was going nowhere and just left.
Well, a couple things. In addition to our having reached out and spoken to the mayor of that particular community, it's my understanding that it will have to go in front of our planning board.
That's where I was misinformed.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the detention basin will have to be approved by Howell Township because it's on Howell Township property. The Howell Township Planning Board will have to review it. In fact, as Mr. Gannon pointed out, if Mr. Peters was dispatched to the site, it was probably as a function of an anticipated planning board action of some sort, and the $500 would likely be the beginning engagement of an escrow amount of funds set aside by the applicant to cover Mr. Peters' expenses to go out and begin the review process. That detention basin will be subject to all of the stormwater management regulations and all of the Howell Township ordinances with respect to detention basin management. The applicant will have to appear here in these chambers and address the planning board. There'll be an open public hearing where members of the community will be
Thank you.
entitled to come out and to participate and to raise concerns and objections. Those concerns and objections will need to be addressed by the planning board. They'll need to be addressed by the planning board's engineer, by the planning board's planner, and the members of the board will have to consider all of those items as they deliberate on a potential approval or denial, quite frankly, of that particular apparatus. So there will be a hearing in this municipality. It will be under the jurisdiction of the planning board to take control of that situation and to understand all of the details and technicalities, and obviously take action that is consistent with municipal land use law and also consistent with the best interest of the people of our own community. I don't know where that application is in the process. Obviously, since you live, I don't know where in Moore's Landing you are with respect to proximity of that detention basin.
I'm actually the beginning
Pretty
of it.
close to it?
I'm helping Abe. I'm waiting
Okay.
for another property that's going to be up soon, and that I'm much more concerned
There-
about, but at least I'll learn by then.
Sure. No, it's a great point. Anyone that lives within 200 feet, it's my understanding, within 200-foot proximity of that detention basin will get a certified letter in the mail by the applicant. They will receive that information notifying them of the date, time, and location of this community's planning board meeting so that
Okay.
they will be invited to be able to attend the meeting and to raise any concerns or objections.
Okay, because I don't realize, right now, I went to the Monmouth County taxation, because I'm trying to find out who owns certain properties to investigate things. And I don't know if you realize how many properties right now people have gotten letters. 3 ladies there got letters on different properties in different areas. They're trying to build on areas that really were unbuildable before.
3 ladies
They're
in your
trying-
development?
No, in the taxation on Freehold Borough, and the taxation that live in Howell that have gotten letters from the DEP. So that's why maybe you can come to a process in when they're going to build things on streams, a better way of, because I've been getting the runaround from your office, from Myra, from Mr. Nunziato, and I just appreciate everything
Okay.
you said. I'm glad it's on record. I'm glad. We're just asking that they really investigate. This is a
Absolutely.
problem property. They had people there that night from Burgerfield. And like I said, if you listen, they were not even concerned, did not even address Howell Township. I mean, we could have been an afterthought for 2 minutes just to say about the flooding.
Well,
But
the good news is we're going to have
appreciate it.
our own day in court right here in these
That's what I wanted to
chambers.
hear. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure. Good to see you, Ms. Calderon. Jack Brannon. Mr. Brannon, are you here? Okay. Welcome, Mr. Brannon.
Thank you.
If you just please give us your name and address.
Sure. Jack Brennan, 16 Woodland Drive.
Good to see you.
I just really have a question about zoning, and really in reference to the HD1 master plan rezoning
Okay.
that went on, I guess was 1995, from what I can gather, when some of the zoning was changed. I happen to live in the Land of Pines development, which
Okay.
is next to the proposed hotel site,
And
we'll just say
okay.
that. Question was, if I'm not mistaken, I got a copy of the Municipal Land Use Law Act. When zoning's changed, even by master plan, and I'm looking for some information back from you,
Sure.
the people within 200 feet of that zoning should have been notified either by, it says by regular mail and then by certified mail. I talked to a number of people that have lived in that neighborhood that are within that 200-foot boundary.
Yes.
And to the best of their knowledge, they were never notified.
Yeah, there's a
of-
reason. The HD change that would allow hotels.
No, I'm not talking about the zoning
You're just
amendment. I'm
talking HD in
talking about
general.
when it went from
Oh,
residential.
back in '95.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, this is what well, this is before your time. My question is, those people that live there within 200 feet back at that time, to the best of their knowledge, were never notified. Now, my question is, and I think 2 council meetings or 3 council meetings ago, there were some discrepancies of people when things were rezoned that weren't notified. I don't remember the specifics, but I remember somebody saying it was agricultural and it was rezoned HD1, and that person came in front of you and said, no, I want it rezoned back to agricultural again. If the letter of the law, my question is, wasn't followed properly, do the residents within that 200 feet boundary have a right to petition to have the zoning rescinded.
If back in 1995, they were not appropriately notified of the potential change in conjunction with the master plan, what still would have happened was that there would have been passage by municipal ordinance in which there would have been an advertisement, there would have been an introductory hearing, there would have been a second hearing on the ordinance itself. I don't know if in fact whether someone did or didn't get the letter making them aware whether that would go back and invalidate the 95 master plan. But
Well,
yeah, that's a question
the reason
probably for Mr.
I'm sort
Gannon.
of opposing or asking this question is, again, there's a number of people that still live there, that were there back in the early 90s, that should have been notified. And we've had many meetings within our community about what's been going on or potentially going on. And most of the people that are within that 200 feet that have lived there don't remember receiving this. Now, I went to the town clerk and asked, because according to this, it should be kept on permanent file.
That's correct. It would have to be.
Okay. And the question I asked her was, do you have records from 1995 or 96, whichever year it was apparently changed? And the answer was possibly. She'd have to do some research in it and get back to see if she could find anything. But my question was, there's a lot of people in our development are very upset about potentially what might be going on there. And I did not contact them, but somebody else apparently did contact an attorney that specializes in land use. And she was directed that we probably have a very good case to pursue this. So I'm asking you.
Yeah, I wouldn't know the legality. Maybe Mr. Gannon or could answer if someone contends they didn't get noticed in 95.
More than one.
Just a question, was the whole master plan reviewed in 95? Does anyone?
I don't know. That's.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
there's a difference if it's a master plan that's one of the housing elements or the tax element or the land use element. Those are done on a basis of public hearings. So an individual may not have gotten notice.
Well, municipal land use law says even with master plan revisions, they have to be notified by mail and registered mail, and that has to be kept on file permanently.
I'm not going to debate that, but there's certain
Okay.
things that you do have to have notice, and one of them would be an ordinance that implements the master plan with regard to the zoning. Okay? And generally, that's done. People that are affected are given notice.
Well, I'm not saying, I'm just going by what when we talked about it, and I asked people specifically.
Right, but if it's 1995, you know, there's a doctrine in the municipal land use law that says it's called latches, that says after a period of time, normally unless there's a constitutional allegation or some type of constitutional issue, then, you know, you generally have 45 days to challenge it.
I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not an attorney, but I did read through the 93 pages of the law, and I didn't see it stipulating if due diligence of the law wasn't followed at that point. It says if you were notified and you didn't repeal it within 45 days, but if the people were never properly notified at that point.
Right, but under the rules of court and the rules to challenge ordinances and municipal action, Rule 4:69-1 or something, you have to bring your action to challenge municipal action within 45 days, or the presumption of validity applies.
Okay.
So if you're talking 10 years,
Well, I'm just saying because nobody in our development, and I've lived there for 21 years, but granted, I'm not within the 200 feet of the property. Nobody.
but as far as
that I
master
talked to-
plan goes, it depends on what you're doing, and, you know,
Well, if
When
I'm
you-
not
when you-
mistaken,
when
I
you
have to
do-
look it up myself, but I was told by the person that did do some research on this that it was zoned
that person
R-
here?
Or,
I can ask me a few
unfortunately, she's
questions.
out of town. I would have dragged her
Okay.
with me tonight.
No, the bottom
but-
line is, when you're doing master plans, you usually do that by notices, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Ordinances where you get the actual 200-foot notice.
Okay.
To the individuals.
The reason I mean, I'll give you a copy.
Because when we do a land use element, right,
Yeah.
we'd have to give everybody in, if it was a master plan, as you said, we'd have to give everybody in town hall, in the township, a notice, individual.
It says within 200 feet, a master plan revision.
But,
Well,
right.
Well,
I'm not going to split hairs, but
Sure.
my question is if this was not followed, because I'm going to ask the clerk to research this,
Yeah.
and maybe she has it on file, and if she does, then,
Right.
all right, they just don't remember correctly. But if she doesn't, and those people come back to the town and saying, we weren't notified properly based on this, I mean, do we come back to you and say we request this rescinded? Or do we have to turn around and hire an attorney and then file legal status to basically
What
go
I'm
to
saying,
court over this?
you can hire an attorney. I'm telling you, after 10 years, if that's when the action took place, there would be no jurisdiction for a court to look at it.
Okay. I'm looking for some help or information,
Yeah,
I should say.
I'm telling you, I mean, basically, after 10 years, and you have the rules of court that say to challenge municipal action, it's 45 days, or if there's a constitutional infirmity, there may be 2 years or 6 years, but I know, I don't know of any
I didn't
action
see a
that was...
limitation written within this, but there are other precedents.
It's not in that law.
Right.
That's what keeps me in business, because it's never in one law, it's always in 3 other laws. It's actually a rule of court.
Mr. Brennan, I think
Statute of limitations,
what
really.
may be a good way to proceed is that you, in fact, get in contact with the clerk's
Oh,
office.
I will tomorrow.
I'm certain that they will accommodate your request and do everything
Okay.
they can to go back and pull
But
the
I mean, I
records.
just find it a little disturbing that the people whose property
Sure.
does come within the 200 feet, nobody seems to know when this got rezoned.
Sure. Well, hopefully, we'll be able to pull the records from the clerk's office. They maintain an extraordinary set of archives, as you can appreciate. In the event that the correspondence is not there, then I would ask that you contact my office or perhaps talk to the township manager, raise the concerns. We certainly wouldn't want to see a resident have to hire an attorney.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I have not contacted,
Of
but
course,
somebody
but
in
we
the
wouldn't
neighborhood
want people to
has.
have to spend money out of their own pocket to attempt to raise a challenge or a concern. The planning board is deliberating on a whole new master plan now that
I
makes
understand.
some changes to different things, and so I think that certainly if you have concerns, we'd like to hear them, and we would like to be as helpful as we can be.
Really just some answers. is what
Of
I'm
course.
looking
Yeah, I think the best first start is probably with the clerk. Let's see
Yeah.
what they can find.
for. Okay, thank
Okay?
you.
All right, thank you for your time, sir. Mr. Magid.
This is not quite state property, but it's almost. I have a left foot that drops. Nothing very serious at all. It looks like it's serious. It's not. I appreciate very much several members of the council asked me for how my health is, and my health is good, and I appreciate that query.
Mr. Magid, if you would, only because we have to record this for the record.
Sure.
If you'd just give us your name and address, although you need little introduction, your name and address.
Oh, you're very kind. That's a very pleasant thing. This is Abe Maggot, and I live at 89 Mariners Cove in Howell, and post office is freehold, but that's not a very tasty sound to me, the word freehold. Oh, and I'll explain that in a moment. I would just like to pass these around, so it'll make a little more sense, perhaps. This is the detention basin that Apostle Acres wants to put into Howell.
You want me to pass those for you?
Oh, would you? You're super kind. Oh, it's nice to be in Howell because I have to use this word. Freehold, and this is a euphemism for the word I really want to use, was totally callous and totally indifferent. And I spoke a long time. And the reason I can say tonight how good my health was, because I came away from there after a long time, very strong. So I gained weight, I don't stress my pacemaker, and so on. All right, enough of that verbiage. Oh, let me have one of those back so I can point it. Now, bottom line as far as freehold is concerned, it's not really of their concern. They follow the law. Goodbye, Charlie. Any number of times, and I am getting the minutes, which I transcribe, will bring here. Any number of times when I made a simple request to them, they just waved me away. We're not talking about that. You'll see it in the minutes. If they didn't use specifically the words, "we don't care about Howell," they became very close to that line. It's your problem there if you're flooded and so on.
Okay. Now, why am I here tonight? Well, I'm delighted, as Marie said, it's going before the planning board. Let's take a look at this basin, everybody, for just a moment. This basin in Howell doesn't occupy much space at all and sits on 6 acres. And you notice from its quaint shape, to save some trees, it's even smaller than if the trees weren't there, and we'll leave the trees there. My point over and over to the planning board and to the developer is, I know all about the statistics of the 100-year storm, 7.5 inches of rain in one day. One day wouldn't do it. What happened last October? We had about 7, 8 days of very heavy rain. Maybe we won't have that again. Maybe we'll only have 4 days, 5 days. If you look at this drawing, you'll see some interesting things. You'll see that there's an outlet. The bottom of this detention basin, that is other than the sand under it, which is for the infiltration, but that doesn't mean anything, is at 81.4 feet. The bottom is 80 feet. At 81.4 feet, the water will start to run down to the Cattail Brook. And it'll run at a certain rate of flow, which wouldn't be bad. Fine, it's water, runs out. The Oxbow thing with the Manasquan River, we'll take it. No problem whatsoever. Now, that's for 7.5 inches of rain, one day. Now comes day 2. Now the basin will fill up, and the developer agreed, never contested me on that, to what's called the emergency spillway, which if you take a look at this drawing now sits near the top at 82.5 feet. We'll say that's day 2, okay? It's still not too bad. Now we come to day 3. Now comes the spill. Now the spill here is running right into the Manasquan River. Well, why is that a problem? A problem is that when you build a development, you're putting down concrete so there's more volume of water than would be if it was just plain land. According to the developer, I was treated rather shabbily or indifferently. He says, oh, that's minuscule. Minuscule. That's a word. No, it's not minuscule. It's water running in their storm sewers right to the detention basin. Now let's talk about day 4. Well, what do you know? More water spilling over. Because the rate of flow is nice at the 81.4. The spillway, oh, that's the open gold rush. Everybody's pouring out now. So I kept asking for the simplest of things, and now I get to my point, and the only point. And I can debate all these statistics. I've talked endlessly to DEP. In fact, I'll be going down there again. They cannot do what Howell must do. And I heard on Channel 77 delightfully what you said. We pay you guys, 52,000 of us, and you have our interest at heart. Okay, time. I asked...
Pay them, I don't take the money.
Huh?
I'm kidding.
None of us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to enforce things.
I know.
By the way, I did call your office. It slipped my mind. Your secretary said, you know, you're busy away. I'll see you here. Okay, now it's fine. I simply said this. It's kindergarten arithmetic. Double the size of this basin. Leave the trees if somebody is very testy about that. Simply expand it, north of it and south of it, plenty of land. I said that directly to the engineer from the developer. And I don't know if the tape recorded, because he has this wonderful way of pursing his lips, and Edgar Bergen isn't telling Charlie McCarthy what to say, so nothing comes out. That kind of thing. What'd you say? Finally, I got him to mumble again. Maybe it picked it up. Oh, there might be environmental protection. Well, I'll sell you the Brooklyn Bridge, or when donkeys fly. What environmental protection could there be if you just made it north a little and south a little? You'll hold twice as much water, and any kid now in kindergarten with a computer knows that. So we're protected for the 4th day. And they went into long jargon. You can't anticipate nature. You know, all the verbiage, I can roll it out twice around the circumference of the earth. It's meaningless. I want Howell Township to give us the kind of relief by insisting on the simplest thing. Dig a bigger hole in the ground. Cost him next to nothing. He's spending a fortune. He's building $1 million houses. I own the giant property. I was in business. I knew all about John Deere and what it costs to dig out a hole. That's what we're talking about, a hole. Maybe a little fancied up. What's minuscule here is the extra cost for doubling the size. Now, I'm not saying triple, quadruple. You know, okay, we could go on infinitum. I want that basin to be double the size. Somebody estimated it. I don't care. I want it double the size. I want the planning board to simply insist on doubling the size. Yes, I'm going to go down to TEP because they haven't granted it yet. Maybe there's some other little periwinkles. But basically, my one point, and I'll debate with anybody who tries to tell me that doubling the size doesn't give great security and they can do it. And the pity of it all, and I mean the pity, is how can the developer, for the sake of simple goodwill of another township, we're not just across the pond, as they say in England. We're right here, all Americans, Monmouth County, two contiguous. They may need our good consideration someday, and that developer won't even. Now, I'll tell you what I was really put out, and then I'll cut. After I spoke, I hardly got back to my seat before I found out. And the chairman of the planning board, go unnamed, said, oh yeah, we take everything into consideration, like in a nanosecond. By the time I got to the seat, they had passed it. Preliminary and final approval for the whole thing based on some agreements. I'm asking Howell Township, I guess I'm saying I'm insisting to Howell Township, for the sake of protecting us in that thing, in Moore's Landing, the Oxbow, double the size of that basin, and I want him to produce in dollars his extra cost. And I want the planning board to stand by that if he starts saying anything about environmental this and that, somebody kick him in the head in a hurry. Take that off the tape. By the way, Ernie Peters, in sending his evaluation here to our engineer, Mr. Nunziato, didn't really say anything about this basin, because I'll read you the line he used. He said, our review was limited to review of the plans and calculations related to the infiltration basis. Infiltration is the most minuscule. That's the water that runs down in the sand for a little while until the ground is saturated. Located in Howell Township, we offer the following comments for your consideration. That's not what this basin is all about. It's nice you put in a foot of sand. Run some more water down. How much you going to run? Like nothing. What they're saying is garnished. Okay? Now, I'll tell you one more Yiddish word and I'll get the hell out of here. There is a thing called, if anybody's Jewish, they'll know it. It's called a mitzvah. What the hell's a mitzvah? A mitzvah is just a good deed. Well, people are always doing good deeds. But there are some good deeds that are called a mitzvah. And that's the one that God takes note of. Now, why am I saying that? I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about 30 other people who sweat and worry and stuff like that, and little kids that greet me all the time. If you do this, it should ring a bell like It's a Wonderful Life with that angel. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Mr. Magg.
Thank you, Mr. Magg.
I know the planning board is obviously going to do the right thing.
Oh, I'll miss you on the planning board. I know you're very busy. Got to make a living.
I did.
Put away and those things for your kids for college. I assume there's some children
That's
running
true.
around there somewhere. I have 14 grandchildren. Everybody's sweating it right now, you know. They're going to get bigger pretty soon. Well, that's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Magg. It's good
And
to
my
see
health
you.
is good. Really is. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have 3 proclamations to read, and I'm going to ask that we hear from, I'm going to close the public portion. I'm going to ask that we hear from Ms. Antonucci first, and then we'll do the Girl Scout presentation, then we'll go into closed session. The proclamations are as follows. One is sincerely as important as the next. The first is a proclamation from my office regarding Autism Awareness Month. It reads as follows. Whereas autism is a pervasive developmental disorder affecting the social, learning, and behavioral skills of those affected by it, whereas autism was once thought of to be a relatively rare disorder affecting only 1 in 10,000, whereas more and more health professionals become proficient in the diagnosis of autism, more children are being diagnosed on the autistic spectrum, resulting in rates as high as 1 in every 166 children. And whereas there is no cure for autism, it is well documented that if individuals with autism receive treatment early in their lives, it is often possible for those individuals to lead significantly improved lives. And whereas the New Jersey Center for Outreach and Services for the Autism Community, the acronym COSAC, and Autism Speaks, is spearheading an awareness effort in order to educate parents, professionals, and the general public about autism and its efforts. Now, therefore, I, Joseph M. DeBella, Mayor of the Great Township of Howell, do proclaim April as Autism Awareness Month throughout the municipality, and I urge all employees and residents of our municipality to participate in Autism Awareness Month activities to become more aware and educated on the subject of autism and autism spectrum disorders. And that's signed this day, April 11th, 2006. In addition, we have an Arbor Day proclamation, whereas in 1949, the legislature set aside the last Friday of April as Arbor Day to promote the planting of trees and to encourage the protection of our forests from fires and pests that destroy the beauty and usefulness of our woodlands. And whereas half of New Jersey's total land area is forested or tree covered, and whereas trees play an important role in the ecosystem in which we live, and trees reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil caused by wind and water, clean the air we breathe and the water we drink, produce oxygen, provide habitats for birds and wildlife, and reduce heating and cooling costs by moderating the temperature. And whereas trees are a renewable source of energy, giving us paper for fine literature, woods for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees provide increased property value, enhanced economic viability, and pleasing aesthetic qualities along streets and properties in municipalities. And whereas trees and planting trees in yards and farms, in schoolyards and parks, along streets and highways creates an enduring heritage for generations. Now, therefore, I, Joseph M. DeBella, Mayor of Howell Township, do hereby proclaim April 28th as Arbor Day in the community of Howell Township. I urge all citizens to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands and to support our township's urban forestry programs. Further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden hearts and promote the well-being of present and future generations. And that, of course, is April 28th. I know I will, along with, I'm certain, all the members of the council, be participating in a variety of programs that day throughout the school system. We will all receive different invitations. And then finally, I have a proclamation for, or I should say, from liberation to the pursuit of justice regarding the Holocaust and that horrific historic tragedy. Whereas the Holocaust was the state-sponsored, systematic persecution and potential annihilation of European Jews by awful Nazi Germany and its collaborators between 1933 and 1945. Jews were primary victims. 6 million were murdered. Gypsies, the handicapped, and Poles were also targeted for destruction or decimation for racial, ethnic, or national reasons. Millions more, including homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, Soviet prisoners of war, and political dissidents, also suffered grievous oppression and death under Nazi tyranny. And whereas the history of the Holocaust offers an opportunity to reflect on the moral responsibilities of individuals, societies, and governments, and whereas we, the people of Howell Township, should always remember the terrible events of the Holocaust and remain vigilant against hatred, persecution, and tyranny, and whereas we, the people of Howell Township, should actively rededicate ourselves to the principles of individual freedom in a just society. And whereas the days of remembrance have been set aside for the people of Howell Township to remember the victims of the Holocaust, as well as to reflect on the need for respect of all people. And whereas pursuant to an act of Congress, Public Law 96-388, passed on October 7th, 1980, the United States of America's Holocaust Memorial Council designates the days of remembrance of the victims of the Holocaust to be Sunday, April 23rd, through Sunday, April 30th of 2006, including the International Day of Remembrance known as Yom HaShoah on April 25th. Now, therefore, I, Joseph M. DeBella, Mayor of Howell Township, do proclaim the week of Sunday, April 23rd through Sunday, April 30th as days of remembrance and memory of the victims of the terrible Holocaust and in honor of the survivors as well as the rescuers, the liberators, and further proclaim that we as citizens of Howell should strive to overcome intolerance and indifference through learning and remembrance. I'd ask that please be recorded with the clerk's office for permanent record. I'd pass those down, please. Okay, we have a few presentations this evening. Before we go into executive session, we first have the real privilege of having with us Ms. Bridget Antonucci, who is with the Head Start program. Ms. Antonucci is also a fellow public servant from the wonderful municipality of Hazlet. So welcome, Ms. Antonucci. If you'd come on up and make your presentation, we're delighted to have you. And if you'd like to, do we have the handheld mic in the event she wants to talk to the audience? Is that how you'd like to do this?
I have a big mouth. I
Okay.
can just yell.
If you just introduce yourself and your
Sure.
background for everyone's benefit, please.
Sure. My name is Bridget Antonucci, as the mayor had said, and I'd like to thank the mayor and council for having me here tonight. And I just came to speak about the Head Start program in Monmouth County, which is called Acelero Learning Monmouth County Head Start. As some of you may know, you do have a Head Start Center in Howell, and that's why I wanted to come tonight to speak with the Howell Township residents about the program. We have both, as I said, a center base, and we also started back in January a home-based session, which is when we send home-based teachers and family advocates into the homes of lower-income families in Monmouth County to help and assist with education and family needs. Some of the things that we do, is, other than educating, is we find resources for the families themselves, whether it be food, shelter, clothing, help with higher education goals, anything like that. So we're not just helping the child, we're helping the family as a whole. We cut transportation back in November, so some of the families were not able to go to the centers anymore. So I'm going around to all of Monmouth County, trying to reach out and let them know that we are now going to come to your home and help educate you and get those needs met. There are some brief extensive studies, but I'll be brief about them, about the effects of a home-based program. And it was done with higher socioeconomic groups and lower socioeconomic groups. And they said that there is a deficit of 11 million words per year that children have when they come from a lower economic background because they're not read to as much. The home-based program provides a new book or a new toy every week that we go in. And we're actually modeling for the parents or caretakers or guardians, whomever that child is with, how to read and how to play appropriately with their child to close up that deficit. And when children get to kindergarten, they don't then have an 80 million word deficit. The playing field's a little bit more leveled out. This helps long-term with children going into schools and getting higher education. Another quick stat that was done was that children who participate in this program have a 20% higher high school graduation rate. So it's beneficial to the entire community. And I just wanted to come to reach out to bring, I have some pamphlets about the program with me, also some applications. And for the municipal officials, there are some things that you can do as well, like inform your local police departments about the program. We are working to be accredited through the state as a workforce program, first program, so that families that are involved with DIFUS can earn credits this way and help proper parenting. Another way is help us target maybe your lower income areas of the town so that we can go in and go door to door and introduce the program for people who don't know about it. Get the information out to your recreation schedules. It is free. It's a free program for income eligible families. So if you have mobile homes, and I believe there's some mobile home associations within Howell, if you can just let us know exactly where they are so that we again can go out and target these families and possibly post some flyers or information up in your municipal buildings so that all the families who come in will have a knowledge of it. As I said, it's free for income eligible. The income eligible guidelines follow the federal poverty guidelines. And we, as I said, will come in, we help you get food, we help them get clothes, shelter, whatever it is that they need.
That's terrific.
Yeah,
great.
It's a great program. It's brand new in Monmouth County. We're doing recruitment now, but we are only funded to take 96 families. As of now, we have about 55. So I'm really trying to reach, because there are not that many, or as many services in southern Monmouth County as there are more centrally. A lot of them you'll see in Long Branch, Asbury, Freehold even, which is not so far from here. But we are extending all the way through Monmouth County, so I wanted the opportunity to come and tell your community about the program.
We sincerely appreciate it. I want to make sure that you leave your contact information with our manager. Do you want to say something, Mrs. Shoemaker?
I just want to tell Mr. Shinicki, this is something that could go on the website.
That'd be excellent. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, if we could put a portion on the website, and I copy down what Ms. Antonucci had said, perhaps, and I'm certain
I
our...
have all the information for you done, so you can...
Terrific.
Thank you.
I think maybe some follow-ups are, and knowing Mr. Zunecki as I do already, I suspect he's probably got the same notes we all do, but perhaps a letter to the police department and the juvenile detective agents. I think we can, based on tax data, identify portions of the municipality for Ms. Antonucci that are of a different medium income level. We can include this perhaps in the recreation building. We have a whole area in the rec building that's got literature when people come in to take applications for all different programs, and maybe we can get a supply there. The library. We do have our Citizens Advisory Committee, which includes a liaison from the mobile home parks, and we also have the Mobile Home Rent Control Board. Perhaps we can send this correspondence to the chair of the Mobile Home Rent Board and also the Citizens Advisory. And as Mrs. Showmaker said, let's get it on the website and potentially get maybe even this information out to the fire and first aid squads, because in their active duties throughout the municipality, calling on different families, they may come across something when there could be an application, particularly maybe the first aid squads.
Absolutely. I have applications with me and also just a brief overview of the programs, and I'd be more than happy to
Great.
leave a bunch of
Thank you.
Wonderful.
The other thing, Mr. C, is potentially we can send this to Dr. Golden, who's the superintendent of the K-8 district, and they may certainly be aware of applications. This would be helpful.
Absolutely. We've actually have some partnership with schools, even schools that have an early childhood center, because we see them after school. And again, it's helping the children when they reach school level. It's also helping the parents develop skills for parenting and for educating and empowering the parent to realize that they are their child's best teacher and that they will be with that child throughout life. So it really builds a foundation. So I really appreciate all your help, and thank you for having
Thank
me
you.
tonight.
We appreciate
Thank
your
you.
taking the time
Thank
to come
you.
out. Thanks for your patience and for waiting. Okay, next we have a presentation from the Monmouth County Girl Scouts. We have with us the president of the Monmouth County Girl Scouts. I'm proud to say their home is here in Howell. Last year I had the privilege of getting a tour from Ms. McClure. She spent nearly an entire afternoon, was very generous of her time. Councilman Tabasco and I were given a tour of their facilities, and it is absolutely the hidden treasure of Howell Township. It was shocking and stunning to see the facilities that they have, and what a wonderful program. And Ms. McClure and I had talked about making sure we better on our side advertise and promote all the great things and the programs that are available at that facility and what the Girl Scouts do. And we've been talking about getting some availability for the Girl Scouts on our television channel. And we were hoping that Ms. McClure could come and talk about it. I think she's got a presentation. She's also a Howell resident. We're very lucky to have her. So it's good to see you, Ms. McClure. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I need just a minute to start.
Please, take your time. I hope you're better at technology than I am. I'm technologically challenged. My kids are better at the computer than me.
We lost the corner. 340.
So how about them Yankees?
You can tell a joke or something. You're right there. I have cookies for your patrons as well.
What would it be without Girl Scout cookies? How appropriate that you brought Girl Scout cookies. I think I've had about 50 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. Ms. McClure, did I get your title right? I did get it right? Okay. I was going to call you the Grand Poobah, but I think that's not a Girl Scout term.
The queen cookie.
The Queen Cookie.
I'm getting closer.
Take your time.
I must have gone to sleep.
That's okay. You bring out the cookies. You bring out the cookies. We'll go get the milk.
That's all I'm worried.
Hmm? Yeah.
Okay, well, Girl Scouts are always prepared. My name is Sue McClure, and I'm the CEO of the Monmouth Council of Girl Scouts. It's located in Farmingdale. And we are very blessed to have 140 acres on our property that many people don't know about. And what I was going to show you today with my low battery was a short video of why Girl Scouting is so important. Our national organization has spent a lot of time on research, and there's some very sobering statistics that happen across the country, and unfortunately they happen here in our township as well. Many girls suffer from bullying at school, through the computers. A lot of girls have not a good sense of their body image. They don't have good self-esteem, which in turn causes undesirable behaviors such as substance abuse, all kinds of things. So that's really why Girl Scouts is such an important program, and it's still alive and well. There are over 12,000 girls in our council in Monmouth and Northern Ocean County. In Howell and Farmingdale alone, that is the largest service unit. And what we do is we divide the county or our council into 24 geographical areas. And right here in our very backyard is the Howell Farmingdale Service Unit with 508 adult volunteers, 1,136 girls, which equal 123 troops. So it's very vibrant, alive, and well. And when I had the good fortune to give the mayor a tour, and thank you too for all you did when we were trying to construct our facilities, I wanted to really show you, and hopefully I'll come back when this is working, all of the things that are right here in our town that we can be very proud of. We just finished building an 11,250 square foot multi-program center. It's called the Program Activity Center. And we also built 3 fields. We have a basketball court and a volleyball court. In addition to that, we just finished constructing an indoor equestrian center where we are the proud owners and housers of 11 horses. Now, we don't run this program. We actually collaborate with chariot riders who specializes in therapeutic horseback riding, so that when our girls come to camp in the summer now, they can go right across into the next area to horseback ride. Our 140 acres is a green acre property. We have preserved it in perpetuity so that it will always be there in our town as a recreational facility. You do not have to be a Girl Scout to come to camp. So you could be, I know, you're 7 years old. And we're not just all about...
She's got you on the radar, girls.
We're not just all about cookies and camping. We run programs at our facility 12 months out of the year. Sometimes it's possible that over 5,000 people from all around the different parts of Monmouth County come to Farmingdale and Howell to come to our beautiful hidden jewel. So programs happen all year long. We still have the troops, of course, that meet in the towns and the schools. But then because we are so fortunate to have this property, we can run programs all year long. When Girl Scouts aren't using these facilities, outside groups can come and visit us and make use of the wonderful facilities we have. The program center has a huge multi-purpose room. It has 2 classrooms, a serving kitchen, and that's all surrounded by the athletic fields. Our day camp, which runs for 10 weeks, is open for any girl from age 5 to 17. We have a beautiful 11-acre lake. We do swimming, boating, hiking, environmental education. And probably the most important thing when you come to camp, you meet friends, you have fun, and you're in a safe, supervised area.
Bless you. Bless you.
So again, I'm sorry that I can't, show you my audio visual things, but I think it's important that the community understands that we are a viable presence. There are over 3 billion Girl Scouts in the world. We're in 47 different countries. So it's the largest girl organization. And we're very proud to be here. We're proud to be part of this wonderful community, and we do have a strong presence. We also hire a lot of girls and young women in our summer camp. So if you have anyone that's 16 or older and that's looking for summer employment, we hire over 90 people to help us run our summer camp. And I have all kinds of information about our day camp. We're also, because we did get Green Acre funding, that's what helped us build our facility. So now, like every other nonprofit in the area, we're in the middle of a $3 million campaign to raise the money to make sure that we can finish our buildings. I did forget, we're also in the process now of building an infirmary. We have a little old trailer that we use in the summertime, and when the youngsters get sick, it's probably the worst place in the world. They want to go to feel better. So we were lucky enough to build, it's a log cabin facility that hopefully will be ready for action in June. So again, I thank you for your time and your patience, and I'm just sorry that this didn't work. But I'll leave it for you, and I'll leave the
Sure.
information and the cookies.
Would you mind if we ask you a couple of questions since you're here?
Please.
Could you explain, I got a wonderful letter from Patricia Kurtz, about a young lady from our community, Sarah Rizzo, who received the Monmouth Council of Girls 2006 Gold Award recipient. What does that mean?
The Gold Award is the highest honor in Girl Scouting, and it's an award that a senior Girl Scout can earn after many, many hours of community service, and they must do a project. One of the things I was remiss in saying is, besides having fun and learning and making friends, our Girl Scouts truly make the community a better place to live in. And all the projects that these young women do are part of them earning the Gold Award.
Great, thank you. It's like an Eagle Scout
Yes, it's the
up on
equivalent
the
to
Boy Scout side.
Yes.
What do you think we could do as a municipality with you further to try and better profile the services that you make available? And the reason I mention that, one of the ideas we had, and with Mr. C on board, perhaps we can engage his assistance, but we were thinking about literally coming to the site with a camera crew of some sort, and to sort of do a day at the Girl Scout site and play it on our cable access channel to help promote and increase the number of enrollments that you have in attracting new young ladies to join the Girl Scouts, and to also make the services available. And don't know what your thoughts are about something like that, and also getting you a link off of the township's website. I mean, if those are some things that we could do.
thrilled with all of the above. Part of our strategic plan, I'm sorry for my back. I'm
That's
trying
okay.
to address everybody. We try to, even though we have 12,000 girls, that's only 15% of the available population of girls in Monmouth County. So we really are trying hard to be out in the forefront. And our biggest challenge is two things: making sure that we can find leaders, because our leaders aren't like the leaders when I was a youngster. You know, a lot of the moms were stay-at-home moms, and that's not the way it is anymore. So we have a whole different type of recruitment for leaders. So the more publicity we get will help us with leaders, and then we can fulfill the waiting list. We have waiting lists of Girl Scouts because we don't have enough leaders all the time. So now girls that don't have a troop can be called a Juliet or an independent Girl Scout, so that we can still get them into programming. And to be able to come out and showcase our facility would be just great, and I would love to link up to your website.
Okay.
We have a website, the one Commit to a Girl that's right here, and I'm going to try and play for you, will just give you a flavor if it works. I'm glad it worked.
It did, terrific. Those are some unbelievable statistics, to say the least. Well, thank you for showing us the video. I believe Mr. Zanicki has we have business cards, or
I don't have a business card.
I
if
have-
you have one.
I have all of this.
but I think we would like very much to go out and make an arrangement now that the weather is getting better, and see if we can get a crew. Maybe we can even use some of the volunteer students from the high school to go out and assist in the videoing of the property, which might be a great experience for our young people to do that as well, and talk about the website. And the other thing that came to mind was if we can maybe get some of the literature you have and have it in our rec facility, so that as parents go and enroll their children in other programs, that they have access and find out about some of the things that are also available at your place.
I think that would be wonderful, and I think there's also room for us to have discussion about, I know that the town needs fields and places to meet, and, I think we could have some discussions on, how we could partner. Like, we partner with the Head Start units from around the county. We used to bus them to our camp. So, we're always
Wow.
open for partnering as well.
Okay, she's got my interest now. That's terrific. Well,
you.
we'll ask that you and Mr. C arrange a meeting, and I think
Just-
that'd be great.
Just so you know, Mayor, I've instituted monthly staff meetings with department heads, and what we're doing is also inviting a guest to attend, where there's less of a policy issue, but more of a coordination issue of public services in the community, like perhaps with the library, and I think maybe with the Girl Scout troops as well. We can arrange for you to join us one of these months.
I'll come back with my cookies and my
They'll be very welcome.
more batteries in my
Thank you.
Thank you.
As the
Thank you.
father of the greatest little lady in the history of the world, I appreciate what you do for girls. Thank you. Okay. Mr. C, is there anything else we have before we go into executive session, sir?
No, Mayor.
Okay, I would ask, well, you know what, our next council meeting, I should mention, in fact, is not a week from this Tuesday, as it normally would be. Tuesday, the 18th, is in fact, Tuesday, the 18th is the Board of Education election. So I would encourage everyone to please vote for both the local Board of Education election and the regional as well. There are candidates seeking office in addition to both budgets. The council and I do have a special budget meeting on Wednesday, April the 19th, because of a variety of different scheduling issues with different members of the governing body. We've not been able to come up to a date, so Wednesday the 19th is our next budget session. We have a regular meeting on Tuesday, April 25th, begins at 6:30 with executive session, which goes until 8 p.m., and then we'll be back in regular session at 8 p.m. on that evening. And we have a special meeting working on setting our 2006 municipal goals in these chambers on Saturday, April 29th, beginning at 8:30 a.m. Hearing no other business for public, I'd ask that we please read the statement for executive session.
Whereas Title 10, Chapter 4, Section 13 of New Jersey Revised Statutes requires that the public shall not be excluded from any meetings of a public body unless a resolution authorizing such exclusion is adopted at a public meeting, and whereas the Township Council of the Township of Howell has determined that such a closed meeting is required to discuss certain matters which are exempted from consideration with the public in attendance under New Jersey Revised Statutes 10-412, namely litigation. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Howell that the public shall be excluded from the next portion of the meeting, and that the Township Council will not reconvene in public session thereafter. Be it further resolved that the minutes will be kept of the meeting in closed session, and the time and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public cannot be determined at this time.
Okay, we need a motion, please.
So moved.
We need a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any remarks? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mr. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your attendance this evening. We do have business to conduct in executive session, matter of importance to municipality. So we will be adjourning to go into executive session. We will not be coming out to take any additional public action this evening. Thank you for your attendance and have a good night.
Thank you.